Hello again. As you can see, the weather in Germany hasn't got an awful lot better. The sun's out, but the snow's still here, but that hasn't dampened my enthusiasm to get out on a driving range and hit balls. What are we going to be working on today? Well, it's all about keeping control over the club face. If you want to find more balls this season in the fairway, then come back in just a moment. Hello again. This week I want to talk about face angle and keeping the golf club square through impact. Now, a few weeks ago we talked about the DST compressor and how that actually helps you to get your hands ahead of the golf ball at impact. And most certainly if you can keep your hands leading the golf club through impact, you're going to reduce the amount of lower arm rotation, and indirectly you're also going to reduce the amount that the club face is rotating through impact. And if you can do that, there's far more chance of you getting the club square onto the golf ball. What I want to talk to you about today is basically the way that your hands and wrists should be working through impact. Now, in a video I did just before Christmas, I talked about this as well. If you haven't seen that, I'll leave a link up here. But that's saying something pretty similar. If you actually look at the address position, you've got the club hopefully square to the golf ball, and depending on the type of grip that you have, whether it's strong or weak, you will find it easier or more difficult to get the club back to square. Obviously, there's a neutral grip, and I think a lot of people have always learned to take a neutral grip. The reason that we do this is because during a golf swing, your hands will also kind of move up slightly. And when they move up, there's always going to be a moving down of the toe of the golf club and also a neutralizing of your wrist angles. So if you have got a very strong grip and your hands move up, you're going to unconsciously rotate the club face square, closed rather. And if you have a rather weak grip and your hands move up, you're going to rotate the club face open. This is also why one grip probably doesn't suit all. If you have a very dynamic swing and pretty high hand position at impact, then you might well need a slightly different grip to your neighbour in order to get the club face square at impact. But I actually find if you just take your grip and before you actually address the ball, just straighten your arms through and make sure that there is no kind of lower arm rotation when you do that, then you know that it's not really your grip which is responsible for the square or open or closed club face. So the next question is, okay, well, when am I losing this square club face? And if you actually look at the golf swing, theoretically, you shouldn't be losing the club face angle until around about the middle of your backswing. So where the hands reach a little bit kind of the trail thigh or just outside the trail thigh. At that point, you're going to have to hinge your wrists and right elbow, if you're a right-hander, to actually get the club up. And when you do that, if you look at the club face there, the club face will rotate open. Now, there is no way of avoiding this. I know that a number of good players will actually do their best and they will bow this left wrist, but that is something which I wouldn't necessarily say is going to work for everybody, and it's probably adding extra complication. What I said in the last video, and I'll repeat it now, is that if the club has rotated open in the backswing, then it should rotate back to square at the beginning of the downswing. And this movement to actually get the club down and back into that position will actually encourage a bowing of the lead wrist. It will also have a feeling of rotating the club face or the grip end and rotating the club face down towards the ground, getting the trail hand more on top of the golf club as you bring the hands down. By doing this, I'm getting to a position before impact, this kind of classic position we see in a lot of videos where the club is parallel to the ground, and the club face is actually pointing down towards the ground, not vertically. It's more of a kind of a 30-40 degree angle. And if I were to look in a mirror back here, then it should be running around about parallel with my spine. So if you actually look at this angle, the leading edge and the angle of my spine, they should be running around about the same. Then as my hips open and my hands are carried forward, all my hand is doing is unhinging. I don't have this rotation into the impact position. If you think about it logically, it makes no sense for the club face to be rotating through 90 degrees in the last 30 milliseconds of the swing before impact. If I can get the club square to my spine angle just before impact at this position parallel to the ground and just release the club straight through the ball, there's going to be far more chance of my finding the golf ball after I've hit it. So the big question is, how do I practice this? Well, one of the exercises we do here, and I think you'll find it online from a number of instructors, is simply to take a coat hanger and grip the coat hanger. Now, depending on how far you have your hands forward in the address position, you'll find that the upper arm of the coat hanger will actually press against the lower arm of your lead, or lower inside of your lead forearm. So when you actually take the club back, even if you had your hands in the middle and the club's in the middle, when you hinge your wrists, you'll actually feel the arm of the coat hanger pressing against the inner side of your lead forearm. And the more that the lead wrist bows, the greater the pressure here. I take it up to the top then. I've got a feeling, I can feel the actual pressure of this arm against my inner forearm. Then I'll go into the move, let my knees duck a little, and I'll actively rotate the club, or in this case the coat hanger, forward, and that will get the arm to press even more against the inner arm here. So as I get here, I'm doing this, and I really want the feeling of getting this kind of bow in the lead wrist and the trail hand on top of the golf club by the time I get down to hip height. At that point, it's really about just opening up the body and releasing the club into the back of the golf ball. And by doing that, you're not only getting a square release, but you're really helping yourself to keep your hands ahead of impact. And as we were talking about in the videos before Christmas, if I can get myself into this position, there's not an awful lot going to go wrong. If you get your DST compressor out, that's going to help you a lot. But you can also get this feeling of what's actually going on in your wrists when you're doing it. Golf is a very complex sport, and all of the exercises that you are doing, you've got to get into flesh and blood before you actually get on a golf course. That means you want to be doing an awful lot of practice to get this into your muscle memory. Also, remember that what we instructors are doing is describing movements that good golfers do. And don't take it for granted that you don't do this. On the contrary, if you've got a high-speed camera, and an awful lot of your normal phones are capable of taking high-speed pictures, then film your swing and see whether you aren't actually getting the club into this position before impact. If you are, you don't have to do this. If the club is pointing up to the sky, then for whatever reason, you're going to have to flip it. And that's going to make getting the club square at impact a great deal more difficult. As ever, if you've liked the video, please hit the like button. If there's anything you'd like me to talk about in the future, leave it in the comments down below. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do that. I'll leave my 2019 philosophy up here if you're interested in downloading that for a little bit of nighttime reading. Otherwise, I wish you a great week. Get out on that driving range, get your swing up to speed before the season starts. And I'll be back next week with another tip. Bye-bye now.